Lovely to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us. My name's Rachel. I'm the events coordinator for the GCC. And today we're going to have a very timely talk, I think, from Myoshin, who's going to be talking and also leading us in a practice around how we can meet suffering with compassion, awareness, and wisdom. And hopefully we'll have a little time for Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions or if you want to share any comments, feel free to pop them in the chat, or maybe at the end you can come on and unmute yourselves. But yeah, it's lovely to be in communion with you all. And I'll just introduce Myoshin, and then I'll kind of pass the mic to her. So Myoshin has been practicing meditation for over 45 years and teaching for 30 years. She's received Dharma instructions from renowned Buddhist meditation masters in the Theravada, Zen and Vajrayana traditions. She initially trained as a meditation teacher under the guidance of Joseph Goldstein and Sharon Salzberg at the Insight Meditation Society, where she was later appointed the teacher in residence. And in 1998, she met Tibetan Buddhist master and teacher Mingyur Rinpoche. And in 2010, along with her husband Edwin Kelley, Myoshin helped establish the international meditation community Tergar, which is overseen by Mingyur Rinpoche, to make meditation more accessible to people of all backgrounds. And she currently leads Tergar programs internationally, as well as teaching through this meditative life. And as we were saying before, I've completed I've started the Joy of Living program myself, and it's really wonderful. So definitely recommend to anyone looking to develop their meditation practice in a really accessible format. So I will bring Myoshin on. So hello, Myoshin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rachel. I feel really honored to be here to help support this organization that is actually doing wonderful work and helping to bring this quality of compassion to the world and to help us to find it within ourselves.
Thank
So
you.
I just thank you and the organization for doing that.
Thanks, and
Yeah.
the honour is all ours to have you come and speak. So I'll hand it over to you.
Okay. So, yes, I'll begin by welcoming everyone. It's really interesting, the convergence of this topic of compassion in my own life right now, where recently I've been engaged with a program that Derek R has to teach meditation teachers to teach in the world. And we've been working with this qualities of love and compassion. And it has just felt so poignant as we face such challenges in our lives that, anywhere from what's happening in the climate to changing politics and how that potentially affects so many people, to just living with a great deal of uncertainty. I think, life has always been challenging, but right now on this planet, we are exposed through the media to just such an immense amount of suffering that it's so important that we learn to find a way to meet this, a way to keep our hearts open, a way to keep touching into the beauty of our own hearts and minds. And, really today, I said, when you talk about suffering, one can only feel humble because in the face of it, it's huge. And yet, my life's journey has been really to discover the qualities as a human being that we have within ourselves. And that, it's really taken me on a journey from a young age of, just recognizing that some people seem to be happier than others and being very interested in what it was that helped them to be happy. And it took me on a journey of meditation, spirituality, and really, in more recent years into the Tibetan Buddhist world. And it was within that world that I heard from my teacher, Mingyur Rinpoche, as you've already heard about, a view of how we are already whole, good, we're fundamentally okay underneath all of the craziness, the confusion that we experience. That our hearts, our innate being is fundamentally okay. There is an innate goodness within us. He expressed it once you may have seen a book by him called The Joy of Living. And to me, I have used this teaching as a practice where I sit and I just see how it lands in me. And so I want to share that with you today because really my emphasis today is on how this quality of compassion, love, awareness, wisdom, these qualities are natural. We don't have to create them, but we really do need to learn to recognize them. And in doing so, the confusion begins to lift. And so he says, at its heart, the teachings are very practical. It's about doing things that foster serenity, happiness, and confidence, and avoiding things that provoke anxiety, hopelessness, and fear. The essence of the teachings is not so much an effort at changing your thoughts or your behavior so that you can become a better person, but in realizing that no matter what you might think about the circumstances that define your life, you are already good, whole, and complete. It's about recognizing the inherent potential of your mind. In other words, it's not so much concerned with getting well as with recognizing that you are right here, right now, as whole, as good, as essentially well as you could ever hope to be. And then his next sentence is, you don't believe that, do you? And then he says, well, for a long time, neither did I. I mean, it's really something to start to let that seep in. I know I came to practice because I was hurting. I wanted to get better. I did stupid things. I really wanted to find a way to fix myself, to having the sense that I was broken and I needed fixing. And then to really shift to a view that you are fundamentally fine. You just need to see it. And so when we go to this exploration of compassion, for me, it really hits the place of immense potential. And I mean, right now, the world needs these qualities of love, kindness, care. We're so often disconnected and confused about what's going to bring that we do, out of our desire to want to be happy, free from suffering, we do the very things that are going to create more suffering. And so it becomes really important to look at in ourselves how it is that we meet pain, how it is that we meet suffering. And I had this experience one day that just so clearly illustrated to me a difference between when we see suffering and we're in touch with the natural response of the heart, which is to alleviate it. And that is what we call compassion. It's that 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 readiness to do something to alleviate the distress, discomfort. And so when we have that readiness, when we're in touch with that readiness, how we meet the world is very different than when we see suffering in the world and we don't know how to be with ourselves. We don't know how to be with the pain. And we get caught in fear, anxiety, depression, that our world can feel like not worth living. And, it can get really, really painful. And so how we meet that is so important. And so this one day, I live here on the south coast of Australia. It's a very beautiful area. And I went for a walk with a dear friend, and we're sitting on this high cliff overlooking this vast ocean space. And this ocean around here is called the Sapphire Coast. And on that day, it was just sapphire. And it was a cloudless day. It was beautiful. And so we're sitting on this bench, just taking in this beauty. And this woman comes up with her dog. And, we're sitting there and we go through the usual pleasantries of, when you meet someone and looking out at this beautiful vista. And then the conversation turned towards, it's beautiful now, but with the way we're treating the world, the climate, that this may not be here for our grandchildren, our children's children to see, to experience this. And then, it really brought in the suffering of the world. And then I looked at what was transpiring. So this woman was getting more and more anxious, more and more closed. She started kind of putting out conspiracy theories. And the more she did that, the more anxious she got. And you could just see her kind of shrinking and withering. And then my friend was really meeting that. And so what I saw happening there was she started opening into the situation, and she, with a real, with a tenderness. They were both acknowledging the pain, and yet her posture was opening, listening. She was even able to take in the suffering of this woman who was getting, more and more bitter in a way and agitated. But she was able to be with that, as a part of hearing the cries of the world. And you could see there, how to say, a sense of empowerment that comes when we have that capacity to stand with suffering. And it was just like, wow, what a difference to see. And, it just points to how important how we meet our own pain is. And so, that with that, I want to go back to, that this piece that we all have these qualities of awareness, love, the desire to be happy, to flourish. It's an expression of our innate goodness to really that knows that happiness is possible. And really, it's the wisdom that says, hey, there's some confusion here. You're not in touch with that right now. And, and the compassion is that when we hit that suffering, when we are confused, that is the desire to alleviate the distress. And that it has a way of really, lifting us up into that facing of suffering. And this is all possible through the power of awareness. That really, if we want to face suffering in ourselves, in the world, it begins with being able to be at home in our own being with the distresses we feel, with the discomfort we feel, with, the impact that the world has on us at times where our hearts get heavy, where we get burdened, and learning how to be with that. And so we do that through awareness. That's really the first step of this, is to be able to let these states be. And we don't have to become the states. It is what's visiting this being. It's constructed. It's coming through many, many different conditions. And we are being touched in a certain way. So we look towards what we're experiencing. And right there within that, with awareness, we know this. Within awareness, there is this unconditional acceptance. Awareness is the natural knowingness that we have. And then when we can let that be, that's an expression of the love that we're accepting this as it is right now. And being able to see things as they are is an aspect of wisdom. So in a very simple way, we're starting to touch into our innate goodness. And I've really found it helpful to do some exploration around the desire to be happy and the desire to be free from suffering, which is the expression of compassion. So the expression of love and compassion. Because, if these qualities are with us all the time, it doesn't feel that way, right? Do you, at any given moment, we can see the stuff in our mind and we go, I don't feel very loving. I don't feel very caring. And yet, when we start to look, we start to see how just the little things we do in a day are the movements of love and compassion, which Mingyur Rinpoche says are as natural as our own heartbeat. And so we look. When you get up in the morning, you get out of bed at a time where maybe there's hunger in your belly and you want to alleviate that distress, that discomfort, and an act of compassion to feed oneself, or an act of compassion or love to be able to care for oneself. And that, even as we're sitting here, that, we might get aches in a certain part of the body, and it hurts, and we want to feel better, so we move, we shift our posture, that in our lives, so much of what we do is coming from this desire to be happy and free from suffering. And of course, we get confused. Of course, there's confusion there, but the basic impulse is that wanting to be really at home in our own skin, wanting to live in a way that reflects the nobility of our hearts. And so, when we hit the suffering, yeah, we want to alleviate it. That's just a natural feeling that is there when we touch suffering. And so, when we start to see that this is really natural within it and not something that we have to fabricate, it can really help alleviate the distress, the efforting of trying to get in touch with it, trying to create it, manufacture it. And we start just turning our mind towards this quality, recognizing it, which we can do in the little ways that we, do in taking care of ourselves, taking care of our families, just all the things. We get a job that helps us, that we benefit from maybe what the work that we do. We benefit from being able to support ourselves, our family. There's a real desire to do this in our lives. And so when we start to just notice these qualities, it's like as if they come to life more, but it's like they've already been here. So we shift from looking at the deficit to looking at what's already here. And that has been so helpful to me. And so there's a whole series of, Rachel mentioned the joy of living, where Mingyur Rinpoche, my teacher, just takes people through step by step how we get in touch with awareness, how we learn to recognize awareness. Awareness turns the lights on in the mind. We then start to look in a way that we see love, compassion, wisdom. And so today, what I wanted to do together was to do a little bit of practice where we look towards our own desire to be free of suffering. Because, it is, the pain that we experience can have such a devastating effect when we can't be with it in a way that how to say calls out the best in us, really helps these qualities to come forth. So we were going to do a little practice where I'm going to ask you to get in touch. We'll first do some reflection on our own desire to be free from suffering. And then we'll bring to mind a situation that's somewhat uncomfortable for us, where we might get agitated, aversive, and we'll begin to look for the quality of compassion there, and then moving into compassion for ourselves, and then going to compassion for people whom they have a certain kind of suffering that really touches us in some way and brings forth that quality of wanting to alleviate pain. So if you've done Buddhist practice before, you probably know that phrases can be helpful in helping us to turn our minds towards. Some people find, that we'll be offering a phrase to ourselves, may I be free from suffering and its causes, or we might have more of a felt sense of, just that sense of an energy that's lifting, that is alleviating the distress, or kind of like the clouds of confusion parting. We want to find whatever way we connect in. And so it can be a light touch with phrases. Often they can put us in the conceptual mind, but really we're looking to the naturalness of these qualities. And so we'll begin. So if you'd like to find your posture, and just finding a posture where you feel supported by the earth. You can feel the contact with the ground, with your cushion or chair. Letting your spine be upright. And the muscles being at ease, relaxed. If there's any tension that's in the muscles, just relaxing with the sensations that are present. And just taking a moment to really be aware of sitting. In this way, we bring our mind and body together. And then as we've relaxed our muscles, we can also relax our mind by letting everything be just as it is. We can let all of our sense doors be open, and yet we don't follow any experiences or block anything. It's a simple presence that is undistracted. And then just open to the possibility that we are fundamentally okay. That we have this quality of awareness that naturally knows whatever arises. And there's nothing that we do to create or fabricate this. It simply is. We have this quality of love that expresses itself through the desire to be happy, to flourish, to have a sense of well-being. That we also have this quality of compassion, the responsiveness in the heart in the face of suffering to alleviate it. And that there's also a wisdom, clarity, clear seeing that is innate, naturally wise, when we're not caught in confusion. All of these qualities will be there as we look towards compassion itself. And we can reflect for a few moments on the ways that we see when we meet suffering, how there's a wish to be free of it, to alleviate it. Our motivation for coming here can be based in compassion, wanting to alleviate the distress in ourselves and benefit the world. Just the posture that we've taken. There might be moments where there's discomfort, pain, and the wish to alleviate it. Our eyes are open. They start to burn. We simply blink. Maybe a thought arises that disturbs us, we don't like. There might be wanting it to go away, to be free of it. And then bring to mind a time, maybe it's more recently, where you were in a situation and you experienced not a strong form of anger, not anything too overwhelming, but you experienced a little bit of distress in something you may have heard, the way you were treated, something you saw, and just get in touch with the situation. And look and see within that distress, was there this desire to be free of suffering? And we shift our focus, our way of looking from the anger to this impulse in the heart to alleviate the distress. We touch into compassion. And then wishing for ourselves, may I be free from suffering and its causes. Just offering this wish that we can be free of the distress, the uneasiness, fear, anxiety, we can be free of all forms of suffering. May I be free from suffering and its causes. May I be free from suffering and its causes. If you get lost, you can come back to the phrase. And the sense of opening to be free of suffering and its causes. And then remembering that other beings are just like us and wanting to be happy, wanting to be free from suffering. And yet they can be caught in confusion in the same way that we get caught. If you were practicing with looking at a moment where you had anger, you might bring to mind other beings that might be experiencing anger or some other form of suffering that you connect with. And just bringing to mind this group of people, remembering the pain of confusion, uncertainty, and just holding the wish that they too can be free of suffering and its causes. Wishing that they could know true happiness. So you can have a visual image of a person, a group of people connecting with their suffering, and just offering this simple wish. May you be free from suffering and its causes. May you be free from suffering and its causes. And then for a few moments, we'll reflect on how all beings everywhere, when caught in confusion, when don't understand happiness and its causes, can suffer. And just radiating out this wish that all beings everywhere may be free from suffering and its causes. We might have an image of just warmth, light radiating out and dispelling the suffering in the world. However we connect, may all beings everywhere be free from suffering and its causes. And then letting go of the phrases and just let everything be as it is. If this is stirred up emotions, thoughts, see if you can just let them be. You don't need to push them away. You don't need to follow them. Just simply be. Okay. If your eyes have been closed, gently opening your eyes, reconnecting again with being together as a group, moving your body. Okay, so this is just a short practice on something of getting in touch with this quality of compassion and letting it be an exploration. When I heard about, we're all pure, we're all whole, we're all good. It was like Mingyur Rinpoche said, well, I'm not sure I really believe that. But yeah, holding it open as a possibility really led to the investigation, the looking to see, is this true? Is this true? And but really needing to do that in a way where we rely on awareness, being able to see, know our experience. We rely on these qualities of love and compassion, the exploration to see, are they here? Are they present? What happens as I turn towards them in a moment of anger rather than getting caught up in the anger? And just finding ways that it comes alive. I know some of you have been practicing for many years, and are probably quite familiar with this. So I'd like to open it up here to any questions, comments, anything that you might want to share in relationship to this. Um, what strikes you about the capacity to touch the suffering in yourself and the world?
I have a
There.
question.
Yes.
I have a
Great.
question. Why do we say free from suffering and its causes? Why don't we say free from the causes of suffering? What's the difference in that? Because you know, I don't know why we have to separate it and rather than saying just the causes of suffering.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think there's the actual experience where there's suffering, and then there's the wisdom that understands the causes of suffering.
Mhm.
That really, without the wisdom, without the seeing through the confusion, we will keep suffering. So, and there is a way that we could just use suffering, and may you be free from suffering, but that if we don't understand what's creating that suffering, we um it's just a happenstance moment of, and the causes of suffering is when we gain that wisdom to be able to recognize, those moments we're in suffering, and then we see, oh, I'm identified with this right now. I'm attached to this, and I don't like that it's changing. That we start to see and understand in ourselves the causes of suffering.
Well, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. Great to see you there. Yeah, right. And Liliana?
Hello, and thank you
Hello.
for what you said and for the meditation. Um, I have a harder time to help people that are not Buddhist when they suffer. For example, the other day yesterday I was with a friend here, and he told me how he saw it was Sunday, he was cooking, and he saw his aunt who has pancreatic cancer on the couch. And next to her was his mother, has dementia. And she didn't know who was next to her. And he said to me that he was overwhelmed with sadness. And it happened to me too, to be overwhelmed with sadness about the situation. And it's a situation that one cannot change. One cannot fix it. And so
Yeah,
it's like he told me how unbearable it was, this feeling. And he had an idea, which is to close his heart and begin to be indifferent to it because it was so unbearable. So
yeah,
him
yeah,
not being Buddhist, I was trying to I was
yeah,
trying to say something. And so I
yeah,
said first, that resisting does not help. And that it's possible because I know from experience to hold at the same time the hurt, the broken heart, and something else, which is the beauty of the world and something like joy, other things too at the same time. but I was not so sure that it was very skillful, or I mean, I don't know if it was a proper answer. So I don't know. Do you have an idea?
Yeah. Yeah, it really depends on you and your friend and how that was received. It could have been the perfect answer of bringing, how to say, bringing a tender heart, being able, yourself feeling the sadness of that, but yet having the responsiveness that really wishes to help your friend to find the strength to face the situation. So that in itself is an expression of compassion. And sometimes our words can be skillful and sometimes they might not be, and we learn from that. So that's just a case of really listening in how we've responded and how it's received. But that, you know, there's a really important piece in here of the difference between empathy, like when we just feel that sadness, it's mirrored, and when we're in touch with the compassion that really wants to alleviate, and the wisdom knowing that you can't make his mother not have dementia. You can't make his aunt not have pancreatic cancer. So there's a wisdom there, but you can still like hold the space for everyone to be there as they are. It's like that compassion of bearing witness and whole, but not being, how to say, drowned in the sorrow ourselves, but that willingness to be with it. And that can often speak way louder than anything we might say. A presence that is there, that is kind, is caring. And then sometimes, there is, especially with friends, there can be ways that we can say something. They don't have to be Buddhist. But really, what we're talking about is we're talking about we're really in a poignant situation in life where we're faced with the truth of impermanence. We're faced with the way things are. And that how do we keep an open heart when we can't hold on to what's there, but we can let these qualities support us in being there? Does that make sense at all? Yeah. And it is we get really challenged, and we're asked to go really deep to really find these qualities within ourselves. Though, but that's what we turn into. We turn towards rather than away. And with that, we might have, like you said, you had your own reaction. So we allow that reaction to be there. We know that we feel maybe the sadness, the heaviness, and yet we feel, we touch into that desire to alleviate that, which is just the care, the kindness. Yeah. So anyhow, thank you for that. And I wish your friend and his family all the best. Thank you. Mm. Okay, is there anyone else who has anything? Are we getting towards the end of our time here?
I think we've got time for one more
Natalie.
question, Natalia.
Okay, and we've got Natalia.
This is a very important topic for me. Well, I live in Ukraine, the place where the cries of the world are enormous. Sometimes it's unbearable to me. But I understood
Yeah.
that I just can't close my heart because the suffering finds me everywhere, because every day, every minute, every hour, something happens with my friends, with the people I know. Now I consider myself secular Buddhist. So this happened this summer. I find some relief, some wisdom in this tradition, in finding compassion. But sometimes I understand that sometimes it's really unbearable, and there is a wish to close your heart, to distract in any way. What helps me, I can't find proper words usually. I can't find. But what helps me, besides meditation, compassion practices, is just going to nature and to observe the nature. It is always calm. It is always, as you said, what was important for me in the beginning of this meeting is that we are already good. We are not broken. We are not broken. Despite all the horrors of war, nature is always okay. So I try to learn from nature. So this is my experience and help. Thank you for your words that resonated with me.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that, because that is what you're saying is so important, that there are moments where it can feel just unbearable. And I do just as you do. That's when I go and I put my lap or put my head in the lap of nature, that really I'd let the earth take my suffering in a sense, and I be held by the suffering of the world, the nature, sorry. Uh, yeah, and it's really important that each of us knows what to do when it feels too much. And I also just loved what you said about it's too much to shut your heart down. That there is just so much suffering that we can't afford to. And that you sitting where you are in life and being able to say that is really powerful. So I thank you so much for your courageous heart. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Mm. Okay, well, before I hand it back to Rachel, just want to say thank you. It's been great to be here with all of you and to have this opportunity to share around what seems so important.
Oh, thank you so much, Myoshin. That was really powerful. I really enjoyed that invitation to be aware of the desire to alleviate the suffering rather than, I can certainly be very focused on the problem and trying to do, and that invitation to just be with that desire helped just to create some space and some ease and like you said, that kind of natural wisdom to arise. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, as we're at time, we'll end there, but thank you everyone for coming. Thanks again, Myoshin, and we will have another event next week, so do check out the website and just take care of yourselves. It's challenging out there, and hopefully you found some sense of ease knowing and connecting with this community and connecting to that, your own natural wisdom and compassion. So thanks everyone. Feel free to unmute yourself and say goodbye.
Thank you so much, Myoshin.
Thank you.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
Blessings, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Be well.
Bye.